On today's video, we're talking about falling for your friend. Now, this did definitely happen to me. I fell for my best friend, Jen. For today's video, I'm going to be talking to my friends, Alex and Izzy, for a recording I did over Zoom on a podcast. And you're going to hear their story of friends to marriage, and it's a really fun story to listen to. First, I want to share with you a game called The Secret Garden. If you want to play, there are time codes in the description below. Press those time codes and you'll find a letter somewhere on the screen. You string all those words together, form a word that you can submit in the link also below. Once you do that, I will send you a private secret video that tells the story of how my wife and I came from friends to lifelong partners. But before I sit down with Alex and Izzy, I gotta clean up these fish tanks as they're pretty disgusting and gross. You could skip directly to the podcast with Alex or Izzy, or you could watch me clean. Oh man, that was a lot of work, but it's nice and clean now, and this is what the results look like. Alright, without further ado, here is the video podcast of my interview with Alex and Izzy. Again, this is their story of how they were just friends and how they got married. Alright, hope you enjoy it.
Let's go back to the time when you guys were just acquaintances and friends. What did that look like?
It was very interesting because we knew each other in passing.
We were very much acquaintances, but I always knew his character to be very respectful towards women. So right away, I just was very comfortable with him, I guess, in a way, because I just knew there wasn't any opportunity to be in a non-safe space. So I got along with him, and then he was very easy to get along with as a friend, which when we reconnected with a good friend of ours, it was kind of easy to talk to because we just got along really well. We just have a lot of same interests. It's just the same feeling as you would get when it's like a girlfriend that you're really close with. You know what I mean? And that kind of like space where you're like, oh, you're someone I actually want to hang out with. Like,
all right. So you guys are reacquainted. Now, when you guys meet, for you, Izzy, it's like, okay, Alex is like one of the girlfriends. Like he was like that level. Yeah. Like
really
okay.
Cool guy, yeah.
Alex, what were you thinking about Izzy? Same thing? Like, oh, she's a cool girlfriend.
Pretty much it, yeah. Like there wasn't, I don't know, I had people just in the general like friend category, and she was there, but she was just like a cool friend basically. Someone that I would definitely want to hang out with more than once, but also like doing cool things with.
Yeah, we weren't that close though.
That's the funny thing.
That's the funny part. We just knew, like, the people he's really close with, I happen to coincidentally be really close with. So we had the same friend circles.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of natural that he was always just around me. Like we would go to big youth group things and like our friends would be there. So yeah, it's hard to explain because it was just like we were just such good friends, and like without even knowing each other. It was just very interesting to see like the little interactions we had. It was just so comfortable to like be with him. So that's when we started dating, it wasn't weird that we were like going from friends to dating because we were so compatible. And I feel like that's something that nowadays when we talk about like modern love and like more like Western style, like romance, it's like, oh, like you have to be attracted to these things, but you don't think about compatibility. As friends, we were just so good at keeping those boundaries that now, like in our marriage, like I already know how he is as a friend to people. So it's just so comfortable because, you know, I've had instances and like relationships and moments where I haven't always had that safety. And when we were friends, it just showed me his true character, and it was really nice. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to circle around. Alex, you said you have a general friend category, and
Yeah.
does everyone you meet automatically go there? And what I mean that, I feel like, and piggybacking on what Izzy was saying, was that you have some girlfriends that have a checklist, right? And so I'm assuming that a lot of people, when they meet the opposite sex, might already be right off the bat checklisting people, and then you're putting them into categories of like date, do not date, friend zone, and whatnot. But you said, I have a general friend category. Like, what's your process of when you meet the opposite sex?
I kind of just play it by like the number of interactions I have, and if they're like kind of pleasant to hang out with and able to talk about really interesting topics that range from different things that I'm interested in or different things that they're interested in, and then just kind of go from there. And then as you kind of process them and see like how they interact, and I'm very much like, I watch people a lot. So like if I see how they act in like either like a friendship, like kind of like fun situations, then it's like, okay, cool, this person might be a cool person. But then if I see them in a different light, it's like, oh, interesting. Like this is how they react in certain ways. So then after a point, it's kind of like, I kind of keep like a safe but respectful distance from certain people, but I still try to treat them with that same amount of respect, basically. And then that's it. But like for me, it's like before I met Izzy, it's like I wasn't really looking to date or to be in that kind of relationship. So I already kind of knew in my mind, okay, everyone's like, no, like everyone's already in that I already had that label in my mind of like, no, we're not dating. Like we're not going to try to like do anything in that sense. Unless like, I don't know, there's some sort of spark, I guess. And I feel like with Izzy, it's like we had that, but it was like, again, it took time to see that. And then
Alex is what, like, he did exactly what like I wish I would have done when it comes to like relationships. He was very, I think his parents are a really awesome example of like what a relationship is. And he, as he said, he's really observant. So he watched them and it's like, well, if it's not that, I don't want it.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I wish I had told myself that when I was like 18. Like, don't get me wrong. Honestly, I've dated really great guys, but they just weren't for me. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's, I think, a trap that like sometimes women fall into. Like I had a really long relationship where it's really funny. Some people will like even compare like the people like with him. Mm-hmm. Right. And I'm just like, well, I have a type. Right. And on paper, this person's really great. But when I really realized it, I think we had love for each other. And this is where I was saying, I just realized I don't think we liked each other as much as I thought we did, you know? And that's what was kind of like sad about being with someone for a long period of time, right? But with Alex, he was like, yeah, I can't see myself really like putting up with like whatever you're dealing with forever. And he's like, I'm not doing that. But with myself and Alex, we were just so compatible. He was the one that like a few months, oh my gosh, it was like May. To like Alex, like I had some long relationships. Like I haven't dated that many people, but my relationships were always like long because I always had that mentality that Alex does have. Like when you're with that person, you stick it out, right? Now I stuck it out to someone where we were in a relationship and not married. So it's obviously not that it should be a huge difference of commitment, but I wasn't looking and thinking, am I compatible to eventually live with this person, right? So it with Alex, he kind of was already like, well, I'm going to date this person. Well, they should be good enough to be married, right? Or they should be compatible with me to be married. That was kind of Alex's mentality. For me, I just was like I didn't fully get what I needed to know for a marriage. Because truthfully, like I've lived with different family members. Like I grew up in, like my parents weren't together, right? Like my mom and I came to Canada by ourselves. So I had thankfully a decent foundation. Like I have some aunt and uncles have some great relationships, and I have some that are, you know, every family has some rocky ones, right? Yeah. But I had a general gist of what a marriage should look like, you know, especially like I have one aunt and uncle I'm thinking about. I'm like, oh, the relationship is really lovely. Like I'd love to be like Trish and Sergio or something, right? And then one day I started thinking, you know what? I got to look at healthy relationships and really look at what I want. And I have one relationship that I look up. Well, it's actually not two relationships that I look up to. They're both pastors of mine. But Pastor Zia and Mari, rest in peace to Mari, but his wife's relationship with him, I was like, I want that. That's amazing. And then the second couple is Pastor Dean and Corinna. Now, they were like a very sweet, nerdy couple.
Yeah, they're so fun.
The best, like, humans. Like, I just adore them. They're like Star Wars fanatics. He used to work at Disney, and their story was so cool that I was like, wow, like, that's the coolest marriage. Like, they go to like Disney together and Star Wars together. I was like, I want to go to watch Star Wars with my husband. And thankfully he's a fan. So we get along really well in that place too. But like, it was just so much fun. And it makes me sad sometimes. Like, I've been hearing some people joke about in the internet, a lot of jokes about like, oh, I can't stand my husband because of this quarantine. And I'm like, man, that's so sad. Like, don't get me wrong, we don't have kids, so I know that there's different pressures in that way. But just like, it makes me sad to think that we've come to a place where we don't want to fix things. We'd rather just be sour and bitter and just kind of accept the lies society likes to tell us about marriage. Like, there's a lot of shows out there that show you like unfunctional marriages where they don't like each other. They're just there together, like, for the kids or just to like be together, right? But I just feel like you have to like the person. And that's why that was my biggest thing where I was telling you, like, that's kind of was a big discovery for me, because if I don't like your bad habits and I don't like you enough to put up with them, I'm not going to put up with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I don't like you enough to like be patient and help you with something, if you're sick, then like, I'm not giving you love. I'm not enjoying that. So it's like, I'd rather be with someone that is that way. Getting to know the person, because when you go with an agenda, it's not, you're focusing on that and you're not focusing on getting to know what the person is like or what they're about. Because let me put it this way. Okay. The classic thing you'll see in movies. Let's take a girl on a fancy date, spend way too much money on food that I could have bought groceries with. Let's rent a car that makes no sense. Let's do all these elaborate things. And your focus is making that date memorable. Okay, but if that's not your lifestyle every day, and that's not what you can keep up with every day, then when, you have to lower your standards because you couldn't keep up with that, then the girl's kind of deceived and is like, okay, well, this is not what it usually is. But at the same time with her, let's say, for example, a girl goes way above and beyond, puts on like a crazy amount of makeup, right? And then that's maybe not what she looks like every day. You know what I mean? There's like a lot of like trying to super impress people. But if I meet Alex on a regular day where I look like on a regular day, I'm like, hey, what's going on? And now if we go on dates and look really good and want to get extra fancy, it's just us combined, like, now that we know each other, doing something kind of fun, right? Doing something more exciting. Like, for me, I'm not a huge person when I was single. Let's go on a date. I'm like, no, let's go do something real. No, let's go see like, let's go do something real. Because I think, to an extent, you should do that more when you're married. Because then it's like, you and I are going to go do something special together. Or my husband has planned something special for me. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't go plan dates for your girlfriend. Of course, do something special. But when you're still getting to know someone, do things that are a little more real, maybe, Yes, maybe mix it up. Go do a fancy date on Valentine's Day. Go impress a girl. Because I know it's super, like, over the top. I'm not that extra. But get to know the person. And that might be why not it works for me. But I have a friend, one of my best friends, Cecilia. She is extra. So she wants that. That guy happens to want to be with somebody that is like that. And they know that already naturally. It's not forced. Then it's nice. Because you'll see all these magazines saying how to impress a girl on a date. What if the girl doesn't like that kind of stuff and doesn't read Cosmopolitan or whatever?
What if she just likes rock climbing?
Yeah. Why can't that be acceptable? Like, our first date, we were broke students. We shared Chinese food. I'm pretty sure I bought it. And I thought it was the cutest thing. We went to the ROM with like a student discount and like he paid for it with the little money he had at the time. Like, it was real. It wasn't like he went out of his way to go take a loan to take me out. Like, don't do that, Yeah. But here's the thing as well. I don't want to say that one way of dating is okay. But like, if that's what you like, for example, like my friend Cecilia, She wants that. She wants the fancy things. I'm like, right? So maybe that applies to one person, but I find when it comes to like the media telling you what your dating life should be like or how to obtain that partner, there's a cookie cutter way of doing it, and that's it.
So I want to rewind a bit back to your friendship. Did you guys, because your friendship is unique to what most relationships are in our culture, where we could go straight to even binge watching anime, and Alex, you address the Netflix and chill culture right there.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I just want you to speak into, first of all, your values individually. And is that something you guys knew as friends before, or was that kind of where that address happened? And what did your friendship look like?
Him being a responsible, respectful, godly man and setting that foundation was really important to all of this because he already knew what he wanted. You know what I mean? Like if he really wanted to, he'd be like, yeah, let's just hang out and we'll see where it goes. But no, he knew what he wanted. And he was like, this is not something God's going to want for me to do. So I'm going to set my boundaries straight. And like, that's key because he was instrumental to like allowing me to feel comfortable and opening up, being vulnerable and not feeling like at any moment, oh, you never know, like he's going to do something. Right. So.
Yeah. So for me, it was just kind of like knowing who I am and knowing like what I'm about and my own standards. And that for me comes from the scriptures and that story. But I noticed again, like I'm observant, right? So like I noticed a long time ago, like looking at what everybody else is doing in the culture and seeing the results of them not valuing themselves and not having a proper standard, and them being to be able to be very sad and be very heartbroken. And I did not want that for myself. And I knew if I gave into that kind of a thing, it's like, it just becomes a slippery slope of like, what else am I going to let slide next? So when I told her that, it was just kind of like, okay, this is the standard. We're staying here. You go below. Nah, like it's over. Because this is my life. Like I don't know who she is. Like it's a form of protection for you and the other person that you want to get to know. It's a form of respect. And if you don't have that respect for yourself, then no one else is going to have that for you. So I wanted to make it very clear to Iskra when we hung out that, you know, I respect you and who you are, and I'm not going to try to force anything and allow anything to sneak in there. So I said that, not even like trying to be like upfront or like, I don't know, be like rude about it. It's kind of like, hey, this is what it is. And that's it. I'm just very blunt like that. And I guess you took that well because you're like, oh no.
Loved it.
Yeah, this is not anything else.
I love honesty. I'm very like direct.
Yeah.
Like when I knew I liked Alex, I'm like, hi, I like you. Like, I'm like, I don't beat around the bush. Like once I know, I'm like, we're good here. So his bluntness took any type of nervousness away at all, because like there is like anytime you hang out with anybody of the opposite sex when you're single, even if you already know like established friends, there's always that like, I hope he doesn't try to hit on me type of thing. Like I feel like girls sometimes think that deep down inside if they're hanging out with someone, like especially one-on-one, and you're not into them, there's always like that one point where you're like, hope that person never hits on me. Like I've had lots of guy friends where I'm just like, please don't do that. Please don't do that. No, like I already knew what my answer was. Like, no. And having him start our ever like
the longest hangout like, too. That was the funny thing. Because like when we were watching all those shows, it was like the planning that went into that, and still to be aware that like you're not trying to do anything. You're still trying to see how this person is in their natural settings. And
I laughed when I got that message because I already knew that's how he felt, because he's always very blunt, like very. And I always, like you never have ever, like one time he made a joke that we laugh about now. He likes to go on hikes. I'm not a huge person about outdoors and bugs and all of that. So I was going to go on his hike, and then I was like on his goodbye hike because he was moving from Brampton to Toronto. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. I'll say goodbye to him on like youth group or something like that. And I joked about him. I saw him like the next day on Sunday, and I was like, sorry, I missed your hike. I don't like the outdoors. And then he goes, well, I guess we can't get married. But he sarcastically says like stuff like that all the time. And I was like so offended. I was like, excuse me, I am wife material. I know you don't know me that well, but I'm
Wow.
hurt. It's so
Okay,
funny we
well,
talk about it now.
there's already with those are little flirts that you're doing in there, whether you know you're consciously doing that or not, like
Yeah.
Alex.
You didn't
But
even know.
well, which I'd like to get there, but I want to sit on the friendship for a little bit. So I'll preface by this. So in Filipino culture, and then when you add the Christian culture on top of that, or the
Yeah.
Catholic culture, it's like, do not talk to the opposite sex. Like,
Yeah.
don't talk to boys. And it's big, and unfortunately, it's really one-sided. You tell the girls, don't talk
Yeah.
to boys. So I want to kind of sit in what your friendship look like without putting the super crazy boundaries that parents put on their children by saying like you can't talk to the opposite sex. Like,
Yeah.
what does your friendship look like without all of that extra external pressure?
You know what's funny? So I have a lot of Filipino friends, like a lot of Filipino friends. And I've dated even Filipino guys, so I kind of know what you're saying. I have two friends that it was funny. Every time I'd like hang out with their family, they're like, "Are you dating one of the boys?" I'm like, "No, we're just friends." And like, it's so funny because there's that pinnacle, like, you can't date. Where's your wife? And you're like, can you calm down? So I know what you're talking about there. I think for the most part, most like Filipino and like Spanish people are like that as well. They kind of tend to be strict on their kids, especially when they're younger, and then like expect you to like flip the switch. So I find if you are kind of like, in a sense, I think Alex like is better at this than I was.
So here's the thing too.
Yeah.
Like when I was growing up, dating and that kind of conversation didn't really happen for me, even though I did grow up in a Christian home. But what really set it for the bar for me was that I went to Texas for a year and did a long internship program. And at the internship there, it was very specific. And they were just like, guys, I know you're going to want to like start dating each other because like it's a year long and you're rooming with a bunch of guys and you also work with a bunch of girls. But their whole like culture was that, okay, you guys are not dating for this first year. You're trying to focus on God and your relationship with him first. And if you are talking to the opposite sex, like it's always going to be in group settings. But the two things that were very prominent was that we always, as the guys, had to be courteous to women. We always had to open the door for women. And what was the other thing? But that was one thing that like stuck in my mind. I was like, okay, cool. Like everybody's my friend. So like my standard was like, everybody's going to be my friend. We're all going to have like respect for each other. If we're hanging out, it's in group settings. And that was the best way I found for me to relate to the opposite sex. So that when I came back, and that was in like 2012, that I just kept that mindset no matter what, because at the end of the day, it's like, you don't know the person. And so like, if you're getting to know anybody, girl or guy, it's like, you still have to have that mutual respect for each other. So that when it does come to the opposite sex, it's like, okay, you still have that perspective of respectfulness, but you also have to now gauge how is that person going to react to me if I act outside of those boundaries.
I think as well, when you're friends, don't put yourself in a place of temptation. That's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah. So
with Alex and I, at first we didn't tell a lot of people. So we kept it as like, okay, when we're hanging out anywhere alone, and if it's like not, outside, like in a public place, then let's just be respectful to each other and we're going to actually watch Dragon Ball, right? When it came to being like outside, without saying like, we were just respectful to each other and made sure that we weren't doing like example. When I was single, I didn't like if I hung out with any of my guy friends alone in my house. I was like, it just creates an area where it's just like room for temptation. So I was like, I don't like that kind of like stuff. So individually, when you set those boundaries, and like sometimes because your parents are telling you things on and on and on, now that I'm older, I'm like, man, they were kind of right. So even some things that are old school suggestions, like hang out with a group of friends, honestly, it's not that hard. Just go hang out with a group of friends. Like I have some really good friends that have been such good examples of relationships that even myself, I was like, I want to do that. I think I have one friend, like he always made sure that when he was even when he was with his girlfriend, like they would always hang out with groups of people or there'd be someone around. So like that self-accountability, or even having like I wouldn't say having multiple people, but like I have friends that I know that I'm like, hey, like this is what I'm going through. If it's a struggle and hold me accountable, and it's just like that one-on-one person. Like I mentioned my friend Ceci, like her and I will do that to each other at times, but having that accountability like will allow us to be like, okay, don't put yourself in a place where you're gonna regret it. And then as well, like I did put myself, like that's why I'm saying Alex is better at it. I did put myself in a place where I ended up dating someone I shouldn't. And it's the same guy, like same person I was talking about earlier. Like we were all supposed to go out to the movies with a bunch of friends, and then it ended up me being in that person, and then we ended up somehow being in a relationship. And I was like, that was weird. And I'm like, if we were always in a group of friends like we were supposed to be, I'm sure that wouldn't actually have happened. So I learned with my mistakes. He learned because he was smarter, and he actually just kind of was like, that doesn't seem right. I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to go fully into it.
Okay, so the guidelines that you are saying, you're saying like the old school guidelines, hanging out in groups, don't be alone. Now, you guys were watching movies alone. You guys were binge watching anime alone.
That's true.
I guess it's true.
Yeah,
And
but
so I'm trying to understand like how you set your own boundaries in that. I mean, going beyond what you set for what you're recommending.
Well, we went to his place because I didn't have a common area and I was not about it. So another thing is like, I guess in boundaries, like in that setting, we were we were more like general area. He had like a little couch area because he lived with his one roommate, and we had like the laptop up on like the couch kind of deal. And yeah, I guess that doesn't fully go to the like boundaries and restrictions, but he had a roommate that was just hanging out when we were watching like stuff. So we weren't like, yeah, at times, because if he wasn't there, we happened to be by ourselves, but like there, he lived with somebody else, and I wouldn't let him go to my place because at the time I was in university, and I only had my room and then a common area that was not big, and it was just the kitchen basically. So he couldn't have like a living room to hang out with. Our place was like the place I lived at wasn't that big at the time. So yeah, the couch felt like not his roommate's right there. It's like not like something's gonna happen because that would be really awkward, right?
Yeah.
But when it came to like rooms, yeah, I wasn't doing that. I was like, no, you can't come.
So when you guys did watch together, there might have been a roommate around, but not watching with you guys, and you guys avoided being completely alone.
Yeah, we tried to do that as best as possible. And if we did hang out alone, it's like a limited amount of time. Like we had one class that we had open free time, but she had to go right to class like right away, kind of a thing. And I was very much like by like the clock, and I was just like, okay, cool, like you gotta go, like you can't be here, kind of a thing.
Yeah, we had so
like
we tried to do that exact same dad. It was like Tuesdays, like I had a class before, and then we had like 3 hours, and then we both had a night class.
Yeah.
So yeah, even if we were like gonna be alone-ish, it wasn't like it was like a timed kind of thing.
So this was even when you guys were still in each other's friend category.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was because he was leading that, to be honest with you. Like, I think in the past I kind of went with the flow, and I was like, it's fine. If I was okay with it, I was okay with it. But him being the primary person saying, these are the boundaries, these are the restrictions, I felt for me personally, that was very valuable. And again, it never made me feel uncomfortable because I already knew his standard as a friend, you know? So I'm thinking, okay, like even when you're single and you have the ability to even like, you know, flirt with me or spend time with me, like in that setting, because like it just showed me that like you were respectful, and then it stayed consistent. Like, and I wanted that, right? I don't want somebody that's gonna like be disrespecting me and things like that. So like him setting the boundaries was big, you know?
It's huge. All right. So I want to move a little bit now from your friend to something more. And there's two places in which you guys already sort of mentioned. So Izzy, you said, you know, you're painting, and then you're subconsciously saying, oh, okay, I kind of like this about Alex. So that's already now a different place. Like if he's not longer just a friend, now he's hit a filter for you. And then Alex, we went through, you're dropping things like, well, we can't get married. You wouldn't say that to someone you're completely not into at all. And so this might be hard to kind of go back into that time. But, you know, part of what we're talking about today is falling for your friend or falling for your best friend. Like, what was that transition like? Would you guys were you experiencing that individually or?
Yeah, I think it was individually.
Yeah, because for me, I've had, I say 3-4 solid relationships where I had experiences, and I've had this happen in similar ways because my relationships were always pretty long. I think the shortest one was probably a year, but they were like pretty long, a few years. So I kind of knew some things that happen when you're going from one transition to the other.
Mhm.
So I was like, oh, no, this is great. But I also knew and recognized he's never been in a relationship. So from the beginning, even when we were starting to have that transition and slow conversation, I said to him, you know, let's really be open and talk because you've never been in a relationship. And if there's anything you kind of don't know standard wise or like how this kind of works. But again, he just had such a good example of that, that it kind of came natural to him. And for me, truthfully, I had a lot of fear because I was in relationships that I thought could lead to marriage. And they were long relationships where I did like the person ish, did like, you know, and all that. And like our families were close and we were good. And I'm like, marriage, like, dude, are you sure? Like, I don't know. Does that take time? Like, and in my head, I'm thinking, okay, well, I think you should be dating someone for this long before you get married. And that's just like my thoughts. And then I thought, no, like I really do know. And it's weird because I've heard people say, oh, well, you know, you know. And like, no, like I did know at that point. Like for him, I'd say like you answered that on your own because that was your first relationship, first everything. But I was just shocked how open he was about like, yeah, marriage is what I want. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think for me, it was more just kind of like, again, those hangouts and like certain characteristics I saw in her that's like qualities I want in a wife. And it was exciting to see that, but I still had to kind of like wait and kind of see. And I also had moments where I had to kind of like step up and kind of like be the man and kind of initiate certain things or just take care of certain things I knew that I was going to have to do. Not in a, like, I don't know, like, oh, because we're dating, I have to do this. It's just like, oh, this is something I might have to do if we're also married as well. And then just kind of slowly kind of be processing it as well. Cause like for me, again, like I like to observe, like to journal and try to figure things out as well. So I slowly kind of processed that. And I realized that she just had the qualities that I would want in a woman, just very supportive, very kind, very thoughtful. And I was like, okay, cool. I think this will work. And I did my best just to be committed to whatever things that she was going through and support her in that sense. And again, have that patience to know that, of course, not everyone's perfect, but it's going to take time for her to grow into the woman that I know that she can be and will be. And it's going to take time for me to also be the man that I need to be. So I have to be willing to take those faults and kind of, I just grow with it really. But yeah.
I think one thing that made me see Alex different than all the other guy friends I had is that he was consistent in many things, but consistent in caring for me. Because I've always been an independent woman and I'm like, it's not that I want to take care of myself, it's I have to take care of myself. And I always want people that will help me grow. And I cared about Alex's strengths and weaknesses and support and what he needed. And he also did that for me. So what I think started making me go from friends to I like you more than that was our support for each other. Because I do have, to this day, lots of guy friends, but we were never invested equally to get to a point where it might feel different. It was just like, I'm here for you. But Alex was very consistent in checking in on me, making sure I got home safe, even as friends, you know? So again, that's kind of where I realized like, all right, having gotten to know you as a friend makes me realize what you do naturally. Like I have some friends that are caring that way, but if I don't have an attraction to you, because that's where guys always are like, well, I got friend zoned. Listen, you're a great guy and you have all the qualities, but if like you're not attracted to someone, you're not attracted to someone, right? Like yes, like looks aren't everything. And I've been a big person who looks aren't everything, but you have to have that click and that compatibility where you do have that like likeness for each other. Like there was definitely a moment where Alex and I were both like, it literally like clicked for us. Yeah. And we were just like, I think it was like a hug or something. It was weird. Because like I am not a very touchy person, especially with guys. Like I have to really know you for like a long time. Or I already know you're a respectful guy and I know that like me hugging you isn't gonna like confuse you. But with Alex, like I was already comfortable with that. And then yeah, there was just a moment where I was like, cool. And then we went from, being friends, having that boundaries and respect, and then still having boundaries and respect when it comes to the fact that we're not married. But I would still do things that I wouldn't do if we were just friends, to be completely honest. Like there was one time his landlord just took his dryer and washer. And I'm like, oh, that was like so random. So I'm like, okay, you know what? My car is still good. So why don't we just take your laundry over there? Truthfully, if it was a friend, I mean, I probably wouldn't have gone that above and beyond, if I'm being honest. Or like just little things where I was like it really was a different type of dynamic with us, because with myself, I also learned to have boundaries. He already kind of taught himself how to have boundaries. I had to realize, oh, if I'm too friendly with someone that way, like it seems a certain way. So I got to set boundaries and boundaries and boundaries. So that took me a long time, which I think added to my confusion back in the day where I didn't know those lines. He had that clearly. I just didn't have that. So I kind of realized his influence and the people that have kind of shown him the ropes influenced him to have a better outcome. For myself, I didn't have that growing up when I was very young. It wasn't until way later on in life that I lived with aunts and uncles that I'm like, oh, that's a relationship and a marriage, right? Where I kind of realized, oh, and they would tell me things, and I'm stubborn as a teenager. I was like, whatever, you don't know. But they would say, Miha, like this is what your husband or your boyfriend should do. This is, So finally, when I had somebody kind of give me that perspective, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Because I always just kind of figured whatever like movies showed you or media, and that wasn't a good way to look at it. But that's all I had at the time, because I didn't have relationships around me that were healthy. I really didn't. Like, I grew up with just my mom for most of my life, and I didn't have a good like perspective of my dad and my mom. So I'm like, what do I know, right? So it wasn't until later that somebody influenced me, and that's why I think sometimes myself, I have such a passion when I see my friends making the same mistakes I made. I want to be there for them, like how I needed someone to tell me at the time, because someone told Alex, aka his parents, how to be a good, husband, and that was. For him, I was like, oh, okay, I already know that. I didn't. And I had to learn that the hard way. But him having those good qualities showed me like, oh, you really respect me. And this is completely new to me. So as friends, I appreciated that. And then I thought, why wouldn't I want to be with someone like that for my life? So once I kind of realized, all right, we're compatible. I do like you. We have similar interests. You love the Lord. Okay. This is interesting. And then I started getting a little bit more, okay, now let me ask you a bunch of questions and then see. And then once I started clicking those things together, I know myself. I started kind of looking at what else we had interest in to kind of see fully, is this definitely a yes?
Yeah.
And we did have that conversation. Yeah. And we're like, okay, cool. All right, cool. He definitely still kept like friendship boundaries. But we talked about, let's check it out. If not, let's make sure that if it doesn't happen that way, we set more boundaries, because now we've thought about it, kind of deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was key on this.
So in the original story that I wrote, it was kind of like Valentine's Day and the ROM was like the official time that you guys became boyfriend and girlfriend. But it seems like even at the time where you started to go outside of anime, you guys are already like seeing that this could be something. That's why you stepped out of anime to see what else you guys are into together.
Yeah.
All of January was anime, and I really did not watch Dragon Ball from start to finish. So I was so into it, and I was like, oh, I can't watch it without Alex now, because I've committed to this friend to watch it. So we spent basically all of January, almost every other day when we had those gaps, because I also worked overnight, and he worked for the school. And we both had different school schedules. So and I had a car, and he didn't live that far from me. So like a few minute drive, if it was just to go watch a movie and come back, whatever, not a big deal, or on my way to work or something. So the first month of January was kind of like that. And then February, I feel like the first 2 weeks, we were both kind of like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This is interesting. Like, we've hung out before, but now that we're getting to really get to know each other,
yeah,
I'm starting to like these things about you.
So did you guys have an explicit conversation, like saying like, hey, I kind of like from the time the decision from go outside of anime to hang out with each other, was there an explicit conversation, or was it just a common understanding? You guys already knew what you were doing.
So the day that he asked me, what am I doing for Valentine's Day? I felt like I was like, I have a lot of questions because you asked me that, because I didn't at that point, we hadn't had that conversation. We hadn't. We were just like, he was never like, okay, let's sit down and talk about expectations. He would just verbalize it. He would just be like, for example, this is not some Netflix and chill thing. Like, we're going to do this. Hey, let's finish at 9 because I want to make sure you go home on time and I'll go to bed. Okay, cool. Like, he had those clear boundaries. And then,
but I'm saying, so before the ROM, you guys were hanging out throughout the city, like doing other things other than anime. So you're individually already kind of like
actually
him.
No, we were just watching anime, like legit. We were, because I had a lot of like stuff on my plate with school and work, because I worked full time. I went to school full time.
Yeah.
So I didn't have time. So all we did for the first month was watch anime, because we knew each other from before. We were kind of like, okay, we know what, like, eventually when maybe we're done school, we'll do other things with other friends. But in February, when he popped that's when I kind of knew, because I already in my head started thinking about him, like, I didn't realize. Like, there was a few moments where I was like, huh, interesting. Like, I remember the day that we first hung out. There was a moment. The first day we hung out, we literally stayed up all night, and I was like, okay, I'm going to drive home. And then he's like, okay, cool. And he already had his little Bible set up. And I'm like, oh, so cute. Wow. That's so cool. And then he felt weird that I stayed there hanging out the whole night. So he's like, can we pray? I was like, yeah, we can pray. Okay. And I was just like so confused, because he's like being a perfect gentleman. I apparently am not used to that kind of stuff. And I'm just joking. But I'm like, okay.
Wait, just as friends, as a guy friend, you just wanted to pray together, bro?
Yeah, I just wanted to establish something and just
love it.
Make sure like we're on the same page in that sense and get clarity.
He also told me after that was the first time he's ever hung out with a girl, like, at his place ever. Like, he's always hung out with guys. I'm like, oh, okay, because he has friends that are girls, so I didn't realize that. Like, it was just kind of like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. And then when he popped that question is when we really talked about, because I wanted to know why he wanted on balance. Like, we've never talked about this, and this guy just like classic Alex. So what are you doing Valentine's Day? I'm like, what am I doing on the Saturday, February 14th, or what am I doing for Valentine's Day? So I needed that clarity, and that's when we had that conversation. And I'm like, yeah. And that's why that day was kind of like, okay, that's like our first date. So that within that week, we had a lot of those conversations. And I'm like, okay, let's see. And then I think you asked me probably like the Monday or something. So by the Saturday, I was like, okay, I'm impressed with our conversation, because he was consistent in telling me about, like, okay, well, I started getting really questioning. I was like, so what's your intentions? What's this? What's that? So then, by the 14th, we were kind of like, I would say that's definitely, we use that as our anniversary, even though we don't really celebrate Valentine's Day that much, but that's our anniversary, because at that point, we actually, because
we had more of those conversations.
Because some of those conversations were on the phone, some were texts. The first time was probably I think it was a Tuesday, actually. First time was in person, then everything else was over text and call. So we had those types of discussions. So by the Saturday, we were like, yeah, actually, this works out. And then for myself, I was in a relationship where I was with somebody that worked at the church, so everybody knew about it. And unfortunately, it left a bad taste in my mouth, because I feel like a lot of people being in my business did ruin our, like, the interaction between that person and I. So when it came to Alex, I was like, nope, doesn't need to be publicized, doesn't need to be on Instagram. My family doesn't need to know right away. So I slowly started telling some of my close friends. Yeah. Until people kind of caught on, and then it wasn't a surprise. Yeah. But it was really funny, because people that I hadn't spoken to for a long time, even though we were publicly like dating, when they found out we got engaged, they're like, you two are dating? So I feel like we spent a lot of time really getting to know each other to make sure, okay, can we live together? Can we be compatible? Because The second he brought up marriage, and that's why I'm showing you the time span. It's like January, February, March, April, May. May, he's talking about marriage. I'm like, buddy, calm down. But Alex had the right mindset. He's like, well, you know, you're the one person I want to spend my life with. You're a great woman. It's been clear to see that. I've known you over years, and everybody, you know, that I know is even excited for us to be together. Like, I just don't understand why we shouldn't. And he was at a place where he's renting. Toronto's not cheap. Yeah. I'm at a place where I'm renting, you know. So we were both like, okay, let's talk about it. And my first thing was, you know, marital counseling. So we did that.
Yeah, that's cute.
And I think, so my pastor, Zia, he's not like my pastor right now, but in my heart, he goes to a different church, or has a different church now than the one that we go here in Toronto. And he was very honest, always. And he said, no, you two are married, like ready for marriage. So that gave me a lot of peace, because he's extremely blunt, like the most honest person I've ever met in my life. So I thought, you know what, if I have, you know, our parents' blessings, your parents, like my family, like blessing your family, like, like, you know what, it just makes sense. So let's pray about it. And at the time, there was a lot of things going on with my family. My grandma was really sick. So, and we didn't have a lot of money, but we were like, I just want to get married. So we focused on that. And we even told ourselves, you know, we're going to have part one and then like an actual party, because that day I just wanted to be married, honor the Lord, and then go see my grandma for the rest of the day with some friends. But yeah,
that's awesome.
It's been.
I got one last question for you guys, and we need to continue this on another podcast if you guys are cool with that, because I feel like there's so much more to unpack. Really, we only got to unpack I feel like even just the surface of just you guys as friends. And it's more than friends. We didn't even like get into like what engagement or marriage, like in too much detail. There's so much more. With regard to your season of friendship, what is one thing that you would tell your own children about that season?
Oh, interesting. Just, you have to be comfortable with who you are and be willing to grow. That's something that's really important to me, because I don't know, it's funny, there's that quote by like, I don't know, it's like know thyself or whatever, but I feel like that's a really interesting quote, because it's like, if you don't know yourself, if you don't have an awareness of what you want and what you desire, you're just going to go with the flow, and you're just going to do things you think sounds good, but it doesn't work out for you. And it sucks when people like just kind of do things just because like, oh, it's in the moment, but then they regret it like a couple of years later, or it has some sort of emotional damage to you. So you can't just do that. And I think once you kind of get to know yourself and realize your own faults or even your own strengths or weaknesses, it's like you're able to better to help other people kind of like see that in themselves and help them grow, and not also, I guess, like hurt them, I guess. Because I think what ends up happening sometimes too is that like we let these influences of like society change our perspective of how we should interact with people, and we don't realize that that's actually really damaging to people, and that's that makes you seem like you're not like, I don't know, like you don't respect people, or you don't have people's first like interests at heart. And unfortunately, it sucks that like the standard of like what it means to be a man as a friend to women, it's like it's been very negative over the years, portrayed through media. And it's like guys feel as if, or young men really feel like, oh, that's the standard of what you should do. And it's like, bro, that's not the standard. And if you keep repeating that pattern, like you're not going to like the result. So I would just say, get to know yourself first before you ever start even remotely think about dating someone else, because that's a whole other person that you are now interacting with, and you're going to have some sort of influence on. And don't be surprised if like they bite you back because you treated them a certain way. It's like, bro, like you pushed me to be like this. Like we all have like mentors and parents that we remember because of the way they respected us and helped us to grow. But when it comes to romance, it's like, that's a more intimate detail that like, if you mess that up, like it has a ripple effect in your life later on that you're going to have to live with. And at some point you're going to have to address and going to have to heal from. So, I mean, that's what I would say to my kids, just to let them know that it's serious, like not serious to the point that you should be a very serious person and do it by the book, but have good guidelines that help you not to hurt other people and help you to respect other people so that you're able to break the cycle of infatuation.
Yeah. I think that's very big. I think actually that's what I was going to say at first after you said it. But with that, I think, there's that expressions like treat others how you want to be treated. But if you don't even know what you want, how are you going to treat others? Right? So just, get to know yourself. For me, now that you said that, I thought about it. I'm like, what am I going to say? I would say be realistic. I think people, and I put myself in very unrealistic expectations or places where it wasn't going to work. So movies telling you that somehow love and everything will fix things, it's like, no, you have to be realistic. Like, are we actually compatible? Do I actually like this person? Can I live with this person if I want to marry them? Like, and then there are different things, that you have to think about. Like, I just don't think some people think about those realistic things. If you have different faiths and then you have kids, you're inconsistent in what you're telling them. And if it works for you, it works for you. But personally, that's something I thought about. I actually didn't think about having kids until I ended up with Alex. I was very strongly against having kids. Now I'm not for it, but I'm not against it.
It's a work in progress.
Now it's like, well, if I have it, thank you, Jesus. Hopefully they're like Alex. But realistic. You gotta be realistic, because I can tell you, my first relationship, I wasn't realistic. I was living in La La Land thinking that was gonna work out. And I'm like, that's not gonna work out, because I thought I could change someone that had bad habits and always look to other women. I'm like, you're not changing that. Why would I change that? Next person I dated, love him, but it was more of my family suggestion. And I thought, you know what? No, I don't think that's good. And I thought, you know what? My family thinks it's cool. I should do it. We should have stayed friends. Okay.
Yeah.
Next person. Yeah. Same thing. I wasn't realistic. I was like, oh, I can put up with these habits that this person has been very open to me about. No, I couldn't. And they told me I wasn't realistic. They were very honest with me and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, this, and this. And I was like, oh, I can help you with that. I help people all the time. No, only God can change you. Okay. So even if I can go and tell my younger self, I'm like, girl, be realistic. Be realistic. I think that's my biggest thing I can tell children or anyone younger that I can influence or tell. Just be realistic. I remember when I wanted to be a doctor. Can't even handle throw up. Can't even handle a little blood some days, okay? Be realistic. With me, when I got realistic, I got a husband.
Wow. All right. With that, I just want to thank you guys again for doing this with me. I would love to have you guys back. We could go on for 3 more episodes, I'm sure. Will you guys be down for that?
Oh, yeah. You make it very easy for me. I normally am not down for this stuff, but you make it very easy for me. Believe it or not.
Well, you have so much wisdom, and it's funny. You tell me you're introverted. I've only met you twice, and it's been through video chat, and all this stuff comes out like a fountain of wisdom.
Yeah, she's learned a lot, so she has a lot to say.
I have learned by making so much mistakes. So yeah, I've learned, but I've also had some really awesome people in my life that I would say, I'd be here all day thanking people that have taught me so much. And I've had to be kicked a few times to learn. So I'm like, okay, let's make sure. And I've always had a passion for people. Even when I went to school, I wanted to do social work and social service work just to help people not go through what I went through. So you make it easy. So I'd be more than happy to do this again.
Awesome. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.